Dale here for YeboTV, and I'm with Bill Duffy from the Cult. Not that the man needs an introduction, but thanks for stopping by and talking to us today. How did the band write for the new album, Born Into This?
How did we write for it? Just same ways we've written for all the other ones. Just, me and Ian get together and pool our resources and, out pop little tunes, out the oven. Like.
What do you think's been the success of the Cult? You guys have been around for a long time. What's been the longevity of keeping you guys together?
Probably, longevity-wise, I think it's probably just being kind of, honest and, somewhat foolhardy and naive at times. And I think, possibly not quite as cynical as we might have been. And I believe that's why it's given us, it's kind of real, and the people that like us get it, and they feel that it's sincere. And, you can't really fake it for 20-odd years like we've been going, you can sure fake it for a little while. But I think, that's why we've had such a long career. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? I think it's just, people get it, that it's for real.
Was this, would you say, like a childhood dream of yours? Something that you wanted to do when you were a young kid? Or was there another career choice you would do if you weren't doing music?
I always kind of fancied being a guitarist in a band. I read a book that was written by the singer from Mott the Hoople, a little paperback book. It was called Diary of a Rock and Roll Star, and it was written by the guy called Ian Hunter, him of the shades and the ginger hair. And it was just, to me, fascinating as a kid growing up in, Manchester in England. Like, this bunch of English guys had a band that was, medium successful, not really the hugest, but not... And they toured the States and hung out with Lou Reed and Bowie and Iggy Pop and played all these wonderful places like Cleveland and bought these fantastic exotic Gibson guitars that I could only ever dream of seeing. And then there was the money and the women. And, I thought, it seemed appealing. So there I just sort of knuckled down to playing, what albums did I have? I played... along with Free, Thin Lizzy, the New York Dolls, Iggy and the Stooges, and I tried to play along with Queen, but I really couldn't because Brian May was far too complicated for a 14-year-old. And that was pretty much kind of what I did, really. That was most of my early teens, was spent in the bedroom in South Manchester practicing to guitar in order to fulfill a dream. And they say, careful what you wish for, because, what was that, 30 years later, here I am.
Take me back to 1983. You guys are in a band, you do your first show. Did you ever think you would have the success, or was it something you guys wanted, the type of success you've gotten?
I never thought we'd end up talking to you 23 years later in Cleveland. But I think that we felt that one of the reasons we got together was the bands we'd been in before. We felt the makeup of the people in the band was flawed, and the bands were going to burn out really quick, and we wanted to do this for life, which is, like you said, about longevity. And that's probably one of the first decisions that me and Ian made, which was to work with each other, because we've kind of got that, we've had that ability to tough it out through the good times and the bad times, you know what I mean? Because over 23 years, she's definitely, there's some lows as well as all the good bits.
You guys have written numerous songs worldwide people know, sing along to. You've played all over the world. Could you take a couple moments and say what are the best parts that you can remember from being in the Cult?
I think I would say, certain live performances, peak performances. There's been a couple on this tour that have been brilliant. Really good shows. Hammerstein in New York was fantastic. And just the idea of coming up with tunes, me and Ian being the songwriters, and that whole thing of coming with nothing and creating these little things that go on to have lives of their own and mean things to people, and people attach a lot of importance to them, and they become kind of soundtracks of different people's lives. I get a buzz out of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a good feeling, and probably a lot of other songwriters would say the same. I don't find it a negative. I don't feel aged. I mean, I was sitting in a club after the Hammerstein. We played in New York, Hammerstein Ballroom. Played there, great show. I go out afterwards, and I'm at this bar, the Rose Bar, which is the happening, trendy, New York. Once Val Kilmer's on one side of me, Salman Rushdie's on the other side of me, and it's like models falling all over the show, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this isn't a bad life. And then She's So Sanctuary comes on, and then people start jumping up and dancing to it, and it's kind of like, you know, it was like probably a perfect day, really. You know, I had a really good time, and it's kind of trippy, you know. I mean, that song's 20 years old. In fact, more than that, 20. We wrote it in 85, I think. So, you know, to hear that and it sounded as fresh and as good as anything else that was being played, you know, 2 weeks ago in Manhattan, you know, it sounded good. And that's a buzz.
And the new album has that, too. It's got a fresh sound to it with the Cult also, which is a compliment to you guys. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, thanks. It has been said, the general consensus and the feedback is that it has a freshness, an immediacy. It's not a kind of laboured, long process when these albums get real heavy because you take forever doing them. We just kind of came up with ideas, cats kind of caught them on the hoof, and just went for them. And we didn't really second guess ourselves. And in that respect, it was a lot like the first few albums we did. So pre-Electric, because we started getting a bit in a quagmire around Electric, which has been well documented, that we did the album twice and blah, blah, blah. But all the recordings up until Love were pretty much free-flowing, and we captured that, and we just kind of went with what was happening. And we kind of got back to that with this record to a certain extent. So, you know, I think that's what people are responding to. I hope so, you know, because that's kind of... It was really... We did the whole thing in about... I don't know, Ian keeps reducing the number of days every time he does an interview, but I would say a fair number of days from actual complete recording was less than 40. Oh, wow. And then it was mixed, you know, a day a song probably, but I mean, the actual writing, demoing, recording process was executed, you know, well under, probably 6 weeks, probably is fairer. Well, yeah, in fact, well less than 6, about 5 weeks.
Now, when you guys did Electric, you said it as well documented, it took a little bit longer. Yeah. You guys had to go back and redo the album. X amount of dollars were involved.
3 times X amount of dollars.
Yeah, to go back and do it. What mindset were you guys in when you're thinking, like, okay, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Is this the right decision? Obviously, now it was the right decision. But
in hindsight, it was the right decision. At the time, we just went with our gut, that thing I told you about instinct and honesty, and we just hadn't made the right record. We'd been on the road, we'd come back, and we really weren't ready to record yet. The pressures from the careerist side of the business were like, make a record, and, you know, we weren't really there yet. We needed a couple of months to chill, and we were straight off the road into doing another album. And basically it was like, well, use the same producer as the Love album, go to the same type of studio. The difference was, in the year that had passed, we'd toured the States. The producer had stayed in England, doing a very good job of producing, like the Manic Street Preachers and Balaam and the Angel and all these other bands who kind of were into the Cult, Love, you know, very early on in their careers. And he basically was like, oh, well, I'll just do the same as what I did. And we were going, nah, not quite. We've kind of travelled America, and we're thinking we want to get a little heavier, and we want to strip the sound down. It's a bit too overburdened. And then it created tensions within the band, and me and Ian got kind of separated. And what actually happened was I spent all day in the studio laying loads and loads of guitars down with Ian not around, and then he'd show up at night and sing, and I wouldn't even see him. And there was no real community and communion in that record. So Ian had got some new girlfriend, and he was doing like the John and Yoko thing, from what I remember, you know, and he separated himself off, and there was the band and Ian showed up at night and sang, and it was a whole trip, and you know, blah blah blah. So, you know, Rick Rubin, luckily we approached Rick Rubin, and he, you know, that's what happened. He basically looked at it and said, well, it's too overburdened, you know, you need to trim all this down, you need to tighten it up, you need to chop it about, I'll show you how to do it. Or, in fact, what he said was, you like early Zeppelin, you like Aerosmith, you like AC/DC? We went, yeah, and he went, cool, let's make a record. That's basically how it went. Yeah.
What do you do? You get a busy schedule, you're on the road, city to city, state to state. You know, what do you do when you're not? Once this tour ends, what are you going to do to chill out? What do you do for fun when you're not doing music?
Me, I mean, I'm kind of like, I live in Southern California. I like kind of lollygagging around and drinking cappuccinos and living in that Mediterranean cafe, no humidity, watching the girls go by lifestyle, which, you know, I could do in the south of France if I spoke French. or I could do it. But I choose to do. I like Southern California. I'm moderately active individual, so I play soccer and I kind of like doing that. I'm not. I choose it there. I know it's not the most intellectually stimulating place in the world, but I look like California's kind of like a retirement home that's for active seniors. It's a fantastic place, I like it. I just have fun. You can go to the beach, the old cliches. Yeah. Go to the beach, go to the mountains, go to Mexico, go to San Francisco. It's all right there. Nice. You know what I mean? And the weather's decent.
Well, thanks for taking the time. I'm going to shake you with the left hand here.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the tour.
Okay.